to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest Lance Knight, the Director of Athletics at San Juan High School in Blanding, Utah. Welcome to the podcast, Lance.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience where you grew up, where you went to high school, college, your first job, those types of things.
Okay, I grew up here in Blanding, Utah. I went to San Juan High School, graduated from San Juan High School. I went to BYU after my 2-year mission to Sao Paulo and earned my degree in physical education, athletic training, and thought I wanted to be an athletic trainer. And then I decided that I wanted to work back down here in Blanding. I wanted to come back home, and at the time they didn't have athletic trainers, and they still don't. So I decided I'd go back to school and went to Southern Utah University and earned my second degree in teaching physical education and health. And then I was able to get a job at Whitehorse High School teaching physical education and health. And while I was doing that, I earned my master's degree in educational leadership and from Western Governors University. So that's a little bit about my background and my education.
How long were you at Whitehorse?
I was there for 13 years.
And then what made you decide to leave Whitehorse to come to San Juan?
I lived in Blanding, and Whitehorse was about 45 minutes away from Blanding, and I had the opportunity to move up here. A job opened up because Ryan took a different position, and I was able to get his position, and it just made it so I didn't have to commute anymore. So
he's at he's still your principal, correct?
He is. Yep.
And it's for people that don't know, then he's the former director of athletics at San Juan, became the principal, and then you switched and then got that job. So he got the job when he was the AD when Bob Peterson was there.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So let's have you talk for a minute with our audience about the youth sports opportunities you had growing up in Blanding.
The sports opportunities that I had growing up, they had a lot of youth programs like soccer, and I played Little League baseball, Little League soccer. They didn't have football at the time. It took several years later before they got that. They did have some softball and whatnot. And then I went into junior high, and there was basketball and football that I played. And then high school, I played football, tennis, and track. And that kind of led me into my love for sports and kind of led me down this path that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of sports in one way or another. I wanted to do something athletic wise. So
that's excellent. Well, let's have you share with our audience some of the mentors and leaders that you've had in your life that have made a difference to you, both as a young man and a more seasoned young man.
All right. Well, my dad is the first one I want to talk about. He's a great example, not just by word, but he actually practices what he preaches. And he's always taught me that if you want something in life, you've got to work hard for it. So I've never seen him sit around much. He's always got a project. He's always working. He's taught me the value of hard work. So he's the first one. And then my football coach, Art Burtonshaw. I don't know if you've heard that name before, but
I have.
Art Burtonshaw was an amazing football coach. He taught us that we could accomplish anything we put our minds to, as long as we were willing to put forth the effort and do the hard work that's necessary to get it done. So those two have really impacted my life in the in my career and throughout my life. They've really been an impact. So
Since you bring up football, I was going to ask this a little bit later. I'll just ask you now. So I want you to talk about San Juan and the incredible. I mean, San Juan is always good. I know that you had a winning streak that got broken this year, but my
right.
goodness, it just seems that
It's
every year in football, you're right there. So talk about that for a little bit.
that football program. Coach Christensen has that football program firing on all cylinders. I'm excited every single year for football just because I mean, he came in and those first 4 years built a heck of a program. The last 4 years we've taken state, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. I'm not saying we're going to take state, but the program itself is going to continue to get better and better and better. He just has a heck of a program. He's got these kids believing. He's got these kids in the weight room. He's got these kids basically doing whatever he wants them to do. They'll do for him, and it's an amazing thing to see.
Well, talk about, I mean, it's rare. I know there are a lot of, well, there's not a lot of high schools that can say that they've won 4 consecutive state championships working on a fifth. I mean, and
Right?
for a town like Blanding, that's got to be maybe a little bit different than maybe some of the schools up here in Utah County or Salt Lake County. Talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're a football town. We've always been a football town, but now we're really a football town. San Juan County is, I mean, they've come, it's almost an expectation now. They're expecting us to, the county, the town, the landing, they want us to take state every year, obviously. They're expecting big things out of Coach C and expecting big things out of this program. And so it's quite an amazing thing. And like I said, I foresee amazing things yet to come. It's a heck of a program, I tell you. I haven't
That's
seen one
awesome.
like it.
Yeah, tell me, do you know many people with the last name of Laws in Blanding?
I do. Yes, I do. I know
They
Clayton
would,
Laws, and I know oh, what's Clayton's dad? I know his dad. There's a lot of laws. There's Boyd laws. There's
well, they would all
so
be
many of them.
they would be relatives of my wife who has
Okay.
a family in Blanding. So we have
Okay.
that little connection. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Lance. Talk about your biggest failure or disappointment in life and what you learned from it.
Well, I don't know if it's my biggest, but it's the one I thought of right off the top of my head. It's when I was getting my master's in educational leadership, they make us take a test, a praxis exam test. And for the life of me, I could not pass this stinking test. I failed it several times, and I was getting very discouraged. And my dad, the words of my dad and my football coach, you can do anything you put your mind to, hard work, perseverance. I learned that I could actually do it. And after about the third and fourth try, I think it was the fourth try, I actually passed it. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if it was my biggest failure in life, but it was one that came to my mind. And I'm glad that the words of my coach and my dad came back and told me that I could do it and hard work's going to pay off. And it did. So,
Yeah, well, so that's I think that's great that you brought that up because you learned such a lesson from that and from those things. So that's a great thing. So you've been the athletic director for quite a few years now
right.
at a couple of different high schools. So talk about the job of AD and how it's different now than when you first started.
Oh man, the job of the AD now it is it's very demanding. Back when I first started 20 years ago as the AD at Whitehorse High School, it wasn't as demanding as it is now. I mean, there's a computer program for every single sport out there. There's a computer program, not just a computer program. The athletic director has to know the insides and outs of those programs, and the athletic director has to have a whole variety of skill set like management, supervision. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's so different now than it was back then. We didn't, everything was paper, everything was, kind of, I don't know the right word for it, was a lot more laid back. But today's world, it's just a lot higher pace. It's a lot. I mean, there's just a lot to it. There's a lot of moving parts, and an athletic director has to have that skill set to get it done. I mean, just yesterday got an email about a game that's not even played here at our high school, but I've got to get officials for a game that we're going to play in St. George. So it's just that you just got to be ready for anything, any kind of a change, anything that comes up. You got to be ready for it.
Yeah. How do
And like I
you
said,
how do
20
you
years ago, it didn't
yeah.
seem like that.
How do you get assigned getting officials for a game that's played in St. George? I would think that the St. George people would have to do that.
Well, right. That's what I thought. But we're playing Union before the St. George tournament.
Oh,
San Juan's
okay.
playing Union. And Union was, I guess they called our coach and said, "Hey, we got the field. You need to get the officials." So
That's,
coach calls me and says, "Hey, we need officials because they got the field." And so now I'm scrambling trying to find officials for that game. I wish I would
uh,
have known a little sooner,
yeah,
but
that's a
it is
neutral
what it
site game,
is.
so that's crazy. Yeah, that's awesome. The joys of
So,
being the AD. So tell me,
right.
well, let me ask you this question that I didn't send you. So, is Bob Peterson still there in Blanding,
He's
hanging
still
out?
around. Yeah, he's the one. He's the one who actually hired me at San Juan High School. I was so grateful when he did, so I didn't have to commute anymore. And I was going to talk about him here in just a few minutes, but yeah,
Okay.
he's still kicking around.
Well, then tell me, so it's 45 minutes. So Whitehorse, you have to go down to Bluff and turn east then to get there.
Yep.
So what is it, 20 miles to Bluff and then another 25 to Whitehorse or?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
And how was that commute during the winter months when there were storms?
Going south, it wasn't too bad. I mean, from here to Bluff, from Blanding to Bluff was a little bit treacherous, but
Yeah.
after that, going east out that direction, it wasn't too bad. I mean, there was times when it was bad, but for the most part, they were pretty just wet roads and whatnot in the wintertime. Not really a lot of
Let's that's well, I'm glad that can be treacherous depending on what road you are in Utah. So
right.
talk about the UIAAA, how you heard about it, how you became involved,
Okay, so
and talk about your certification.
yeah, like I said, 20 years ago when I started, I had a mentor by the name of Justin Moon. You've probably heard of Justin Moon, maybe
Sure,
not. He introduced me to the UIAAA and said, "Hey, you need to go to these conferences and whatnot in St. George, and you need to get going on these classes and whatnot." And I got really excited about it. I started going to the conferences, became a member, started taking classes with Ron Dolphin and a few others at the UIAAA conference over in St. George. But then I got a boss that didn't really care about athletics much and didn't really think that the athletic director was all that important. So she wouldn't let me go to the conferences anymore until I got hired on here at San Juan High School with Bob Peterson.
sure.
And then he said, "Yes, I want you to be a certified athletic administrator and I want you to go to these conferences." So now in about 2017, they started, or before that, they started to do online courses. So I was able to jump online and go over to the conference and was able to get certified as a certified athletic administrator. And I'm glad I did. I mean, there's nothing better than that information. It's invaluable for an athletic director. And I was going to talk about that in a few minutes,
Well, then
but
continue and just go ahead and talk about it now.
yeah, I mean, that's what's going to be one of my key points to young athletic administrators is get your CAA. It's just there's so much that you can borrow from other athletic administrators out there that have been in the trenches for years. There's just so much information that you can get, and I call it steal it from others, but it's just borrowing. Why reinvent the wheel? Just it's just that's just one of those main points I was going to tell to some young athletic directors. Just get that certification. It's a
Excellent.
night and day difference.
Let's have you share your observations because obviously everyone in Utah is listening to this knows where Blanding is, but if you're outside the state, it's down in the southeast corner, and it's very removed. It's got to be what, 5 hours, 5.5 from Salt Lake.
Yep.
And then if you're going to St. George, it's probably still 5.5. You got to come up and over across I-70 and down. But talk about the unique blessings that you get with a program like you have there at San Juan, and just about your athletic program in general.
Well, like I said, I mean, athletics in Blanding, to be honest, it's a small community, and it's everything to the community. It's everything to the parents. It's everything to the people. I mean, athletics is where it's at. And being down here in Blanding, it makes it kind of difficult at times because we have a hard time getting people to come play us sometimes. But it's just amazing how we just persevere and just keep going. And the athletic, like we already talked about football, the athletic programs are amazing. Our volleyball programs coming along, our basketball programs coming along. I mean, no, we don't have great years every year, but we have good coaches and we have great programs. And I mean, it's just amazing how we make do with what little resources we have. It never ceases to amaze me of how well we do with what little resources we have. We're not next to anything major. There's no major cities around here, so we don't have the resources they have up in the Wasatch Front and up in that area. So it's just amazing to me.
So you're still, let me just uh, to prove my ignorance, you're in the same classification as Grand County,
Correct.
right? But Monticello is a class down from you.
Class down. Yep.
Because basically you got Grand County, Monticello, Blanding,
Right.
Whitehorse, and that's like the whole that's the whole
That's
southeast of Utah. Those are the four high schools, pretty much.
right. Right. Yeah, and it's just hard to get games down here. I mean, when Moab's our closest game, and then we're traveling quite a bit. I mean, for example, our softball program this year only has 3 home games out of 23 games. You know, we've only got 3 home games. It just makes it tough sometimes. But like I said, we persevere through it. We push through it and make it work.
Absolutely. What's one common myth about athletic administration that you'd like to debunk to the general public?
Well, I don't know if it's common to a lot of people, but just a few years ago, I had a superintendent come up to me. In fact, it was our superintendent came up to me and he says, "What do you athletic directors do? Just get officials?" And so I don't know if that's a common myth, but it kind of made me upset. And I wanted to just lay into him and say, "No, we don't just get officials." But I knew that that wasn't the right thing to do. So I took a step back and I explained to him, and I've explained to several others that that's not even the tip of the iceberg, just getting the officials. So,
Right.
I mean, there's so much more to it than that.
Well, they think that people just think that the game starts at 7. Like you have a basketball game, it just starts at 7 or 7:30. They just think all this just happens. It's just there and it just goes on and there's
Absolutely.
nothing that goes on behind it. There's no transportation, there's no officials, there's no make sure the bleachers are out. They just think, oh yeah, the game. He goes to
Yeah.
the games, he has a great time. I mean, that's
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, we've long since talked, and he has a better understanding. But yeah, he's retired now. But
that's excellent.
I just found that an interesting comment, or
Oh,
I guess you could call it a myth.
absolutely. What's the favorite part of your job, Lance?
I love being a part of the athletic programs. I love watching kids be successful on and off the field. I just love everything about it. The atmosphere, I mean, going to the going to the state tournaments, just everything about athletics. I just love everything about it, and that's my favorite part. Just
That's
that.
awesome. Allow me a follow-up. Did I hear you say earlier that you spent some time in Sao Paulo?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, so talk about I've never been there, but I've heard it said that when you fly into Sao Paulo, you're flying over the city for a half hour before you land. It's that big
It's
of a city. So talk about that. I know it's really off the
it,
AD
you know,
questions, but talk about that. Talk about somebody from Blanding that winds
it,
up in Sao Paulo for 2 years, and what an eye opener and different thing that is.
I wanted to turn around and get right back on the plane and go back home. That's what I wanted to do. But I had the opportunity to go on. a tour of this bank. It's the tallest building in Sao Paulo, and they let us tour it, and then they let us go all the way to the top. You get up to the top and you look out in any direction, just like you're looking out on a beach. You look out over the ocean. You can't see the end of it. Well, that's Sao Paulo. You cannot see the end of Sao Paulo, Brazil, in any direction of that city. That's how big that city is. It was overwhelming to me. And I was just on the east part of it. I didn't get to see all the other parts of it, except for when I went to that bank and was able to look out over the entire city, but I didn't see the end of it.
That's fascinating. Thanks for sharing that. Let's finish up with a couple of questions, Lance. The first one being, you've got two suggestions for a brand new AD, and they need to follow Lance's suggestions in order for them to become a success. What would your two suggestions be? I think you already alluded to one of them, but I'll let you restate that.
Yes, the one, like I said before, the suggestion I said before, get certified. There's so much information that you can acquire from other athletic directors in those courses, and not just in the courses, but from the people teaching the course itself. I mean, there's just so much information you can get and so many things you can get from them. My other suggestion is just networking. Reach out. If you have questions, ask, get help from other ADs. It's not easy being an AD. You can't do it by yourself. You've got to have help. And there's so many people out there so willing to help. Um, one of my, Ron Dolphin, I can
Oh,
reach
yeah.
out to Ron anytime, and Ron's willing to help and willing to give me any advice and help that I need. And so, I mean, he's just one of many. I could mention many, many more. He's
Sure.
just the closest one here. So, but yeah, just get help when you need it. And
Great,
always
great
stay
suggestions. Thanks so
certified.
much for sharing. Let's finish with this. Lance, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
What I can't think of any questions that you should have asked me. You asked me some good questions, and your follow-up questions were great. So
All right. Well, on that note, then that wraps up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Lance Knight, Certified Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at San Juan High School in Blanding, Utah. Lance, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
it was fun. Thank you for having me.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.